I'm really happy to be speaking with Garry Lee today. Garry is the founder of 33%. The website is 33%.co.uk. Garry is an expert marketer who has worked with top-level international brands. So he's got really insightful knowledge, especially with startups, actually, on what we can do to aid our marketing and really level up our game and gain some new customers. Garry, welcome to Business Questions.
Thank you for having me.
It's an absolute pleasure. I had a pre-chat with you. I know I'm going to learn a great deal from this, and so are the viewers. But let's just jump straight into things. What is a basic overview of marketing?
Oh, there's a question. At the end of the day, someone said this to me the other day. Your customer is the hero of the story. Marketing, the job of marketing is to get you inside their story. You know, and the better your marketing, the more of a feature you become in their story, and that's what it's all about. Marketing, at its essence, is about customers and about appealing to customers, knowing who they are, talking in the way they want you to talk. It's just, you know, there's obviously branches that go off all over the place with PR and everything that exists, and digital's made this even greater, and data and everything else. But ultimately, at the heart of it, it's know your customer, understand your customer, talk to them properly in the way they want to be spoken to.
Yeah, this is interesting because I think one of the key points in many areas where people make a mistake is that they try to market to everyone on the planet, and then that's wrong, isn't it?
Yeah, because ultimately, if you market to 1 million people, you'll find there's 1 million people that probably aren't interested in your message because it's very generic. If you market to 20 people, then there's 20 people that will absolutely listen to what you say because you're talking directly to them. And it scares people, you know, and I don't like, I mean, we joked about it earlier. I'm not a massive fan of overly using the term niching down because it is a buzzword. And as soon as you say a buzzword, everyone just turns off. But actually niching down just comes from the fact of knowing your customer and having a real insight into who they actually are, because the hardest thing people find is content marketing is really tough. It's really tough to write things consistently that appeal to people, that are engaging. But the easiest way to do that is write for 1 or 2 people and don't try and write for everybody. And if you're just writing for 1 or 2 people and you know exactly who they are, then actually coming up with topics for them is easy, because you eventually know that person as well as you know best friend. If you saw an article, you know, I don't know who your friends are, but let's say one of your friends is Dave. You'd automatically go, oh, you see an article, Dave would love to read that. That's where you need to be with your customers. You need to know that, my customer would love that. Or, you know, you're changing the website and you're putting a few new images on it. You need to go straight away. What will my customer think of that? Are they going to look at that and go, what's the point of that? That's a bit cheesy. Or do they go, oh, that's interesting. You know, we were running a campaign, setting up a campaign this morning, and we're just trying to, we've got an avatar of our customer, Paul. We know what Paul likes. Paul loves things that make him go, oh, that's a bit different, because that's who we want to appeal to. That's who, you know, that's who our business owner is. He's somebody who works his backside off, and he likes things a little bit different, and he likes to be challenged. So we know that it's a horrendous picture. It's this big blown up head of a guy with his head on a pillow, and the whole point being that, you know, his head is exploding. But we know that'll catch his attention. You know, we could just put some generic creative up there, but and some people will be offended by the picture. Maybe it's that. I mean, it is quite grotesque, but those aren't our customers. Part of marketing is actually, and this scares people when I tell them this, but it's repelling people. Don't want to talk to everybody. So actually, part of your marketing should repel the people you don't want to talk to.
That's really that's fascinating. Actually, it's not something I've ever considered. I just want to touch on this because it's an interesting thing, because as a small business owners or people starting up, we're going to do this exercise now. We're following your advice. So from someone like myself, I guess you probably see us playing lip service to what you've just done. At agency level, how much time do you dedicate to actually defining this person?
That is a good question, particularly as I am literally writing a book that says you can do marketing for 30 minutes a day. So you can do it quite efficiently. It's part of my mantra is being efficient, but actually to be efficient, you have to spend upfront time. You're absolutely right. And that's where people don't do it. So I think I'm thinking back to when we've done it ourselves, because, you know, nothing I tell people about, I haven't done myself over the last 12 months since I set up a new business. And I think we probably spent 4 hours one afternoon and we did nothing else. We shut everything else off, me and James, and we just challenged each other back and forth, back and forth. And it's really good. It really helps. I think one of the hardest things for any business owner who is by themselves, and when I talk to loads of business owners, it's always the same problem. It's just like, I don't have anybody to bounce this stuff off. And so, you know, that's, you know, that is, if maybe that's one of the things that I think great tips I always say is find a good mentor. Find a good mentor, someone you can share these sorts of things in, because that is the key, is bouncing stuff off each other. And I know we did it in about 4 hours, but we did nothing else. But then we go back and we check that and we've refined it. And so it's not a one-off exercise, park it, put it in a corner, you know, like I think I mentioned to you earlier, literally our avatars. I wish I had a movable camera because I would show you them. But either side of me, I've got Valerie and Paul, and they're my two avatars. They're who I write for. They're who all our campaigns are for. And their names haven't changed, but little bits have tweaked about them over time as we've learned more about ourselves. We've spoken to more customers, and we've even understood, because we say it's your ideal customer. It's the person that you look at and you go, that person knows more than anybody else. So you do need to put a bit of time in, but then that time you put in will make you more efficient. And I think that is key for me. Everything we do, because small business owners, that's the one thing I've noticed. And it's part of the reason I went from working with these big brands to working with smaller businesses is you have to learn what's important to them. And they don't have, you know, 4 hours a day. I love marketing. I could spend all day doing it. I have to run a business as well. But small business owners don't have that time. And actually, we've got to enable them to be as efficient as possible. And the starting point is do a bit of grunt work up front, put the effort in, and then go from there. And I would say you probably, depending on your business, you have maximum of, if you have more than 4 or 5, then you're back to marketing to everybody. But if you have one, I find is tough. I found generally most people are more comfortable if they can do 2 or 3.
Yeah, no, it's an exercise. I think I'm going to sit down because I probably spent five minutes doing mine, which is basically, you know, I want to appeal to some SMEs and people starting up a business, and that's probably, even if that's probably too broad. Would you think?
It is. I don't want to put you on the spot, but how old is this person?
Yeah, I'd say about 35.
Good, well done. So that's good, because you didn't go 40 to 50 or 30 to, and that infuriates my business partner more than anything else. We're on calls, we're running workshops with people, and as soon as someone says, "Oh, you know, they're about 45 to 50," I could see his face was just like, "Oh, they're going to get it now."
Yeah.
You need to give them names. You need to
Okay.
ultimately, once you've built their whole thing up, you give them. Because if you give them a name and then you go online, you find a picture for them. Let's say you came up with, so my avatar is 42. Paul is 42. He's a business owner. He runs a small accountancy firm, and he's got, I think it's 4 staff. Doesn't say on the avatar how many staff he's got. I think from we said at the time was 4 staff. But I went online and I just researched, just typed in a few keywords, and you get a load of images come up. Just take one of those and put it again, because you're not going to use it anywhere else. It's just for your internal use.
Yeah.
And that is, I mean, what the scariest thing in the world is, if I ever met Paul in public, that would be a bit weird, because obviously he probably isn't called Paul for a start. But the point being is really give them a face, give them a name, because that's really brings them to life. Because until you do that, you do still end up, you're dealing with a segment again.
Yeah.
And I love segments, but that isn't your customer.
So once you've defined your customer, what is the next stage of the marketing process?
I mean, it's following them through, and a lot of this is very basic stuff. But it is, once you know who they are, then you know where they are, you know, where they hang out online, so you know where your channels are, because that's obviously the key. We did an exercise the other day. I could probably name you at least 42 different marketing channels online alone. That's before we even get offline.
Wow.
And we've been, well, how long? We've been chatting for about 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Google's probably come up with a new social media channel by now.
Yeah.
And by the end of it, it's probably failed for them as well. But
Yeah.
the point being, there's always, but if you try and do everything, all things to all men, we did a workshop with a lady who, incredible artist, but she hadn't really narrowed down. And the whole thing was actually, I hate to say it, but it was about finding a niche. That was part of the workshop. But we said to her, so just run us through, give us a background on what marketing you're doing. And she just said, well, she goes, well, I wrote it down. She was very pleased. And so, right, so this is what I did 4 weeks ago. And she was taking us through the weeks. And then she started off and she'd done some work on Instagram and Facebook. And then she did some Twitter work. And then she went through this whole thing. And she got back to the 4th week and she went, and then I realized I hadn't done it on Instagram for 4 weeks. So I need to go back and do some Instagram stuff. And it's like, you're doing, I think she had about 15 channels she was trying to optimize. And we were just like, which one is where is your customer? And that's the point where she realized she didn't know who her customer was. And the whole point being, she ended up, by the time we finished the conversation, she only needed to do 3 channels. And she had, God love her, she went on after the call, because we got her so understanding her customer, she realized that it was actually horror art that she loved doing and she was getting a great reaction from. So she set up an entirely separate brand just dedicated to that. And now she's spending 90% of her time on that and not on the generic stuff.
Yeah.
It's great. It's brilliant stuff. But so it's find out who you're talking to, find out where they are, because where they are also will inform the type of media you do. Because obviously, if your customers are all on the visual medias, then you've got to do a lot more video imagery. But then if a lot of your customers are in long form, then maybe you've got to be writing articles, you've got to be writing blogs, you've got to be maybe getting on podcasts, that kind of stuff. I can't underestimate. And then obviously we're on an interview format of some nature anyway, but I do personally love podcasts, but I also find people underutilize them from a marketing point of view, because I mean, not necessarily, I mean, there are too many podcasts in the world, far too many. God, and how many there are in marketing is unbelievable, but get on other people's. So one of the techniques, the thing that blew our mind with this woman was she just went, oh yeah, because I know somebody who runs the largest horror podcast in the UK. It was like, why don't you ask them if you could appear on it? And then at the end of it, you can sell your pictures. She went, oh. And she went on it about a month after we did it. And she said, she just couldn't believe the flood of orders that started coming in. It was like,
amazing.
This podcast was listened to by about 15,000 people every single week. Like that not only is that a big audience, but that is a niched, dedicated audience. So it helps you where to go. It helps you know who you're talking to, where they are, what format they like they're in. And then the next stage is just knowing what to talk about, what the subjects are. So we have an exercise we call subjects of influence, which is effectively going, there's 3 things that matter in the world. There's what you're comfortable talking about, because the more comfortable you are talking about something, the more engaging you come across.
More passionate.
Yeah, exactly. You're absolutely. And people, as you said, I think to me before we even started, people buy from people so much nowadays. So you've got to know, particularly in a small business world, you've got to know what you want to talk about. You've obviously got to make sure it's something that you're good at as a company, as a person. That's important. And then the final part of it is a Venn diagram, and I love a Venn diagram. There's nothing more important than what does the customer want to hear about? And that's the bit people always forget. It's always like, oh, I've written this amazing article. It's like, okay, does your customer really want to read about that? Do they care? I've put up this great, it's a really cool image. Does your customer care about that image? Are they going to look at it and go, okay, it's a lovely cat on a bin. Why do I care about a cat on a bin? But I have no idea where I came up with a cat on a bin. Not sure I've seen too many pictures of cats on bins.
It's the same. We see this in the photography world. You go onto a photographer's website, and it's I love photography. I picked up a camera when I was 8 years old that my granddad gave me, and I love walking through the fields and blah de blah. No one cares less. They care about what you're going to do for them now, and they don't mention it at all. Obviously you're passionate. You're doing it. And you just can't get, and you still see it now. It's gone on for years and years, and if you try and have this conversation with people, they just don't believe you. It's changing people's beliefs and what they know about marketing, what they feel about marketing is perhaps a challenge as well. But perhaps in more grown-up businesses that are less susceptible to that and open to new ideas and implementing the strategies like creating the creating pool, etc. Just probably leading me on to another question. Rambling on. So you've got your channel. So let's just the main ones. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. I actually didn't use Twitter for my photography business because I didn't need to. I used Instagram. It's a very visual business. With business questions, I'm actually using all Twitter and LinkedIn and virtually no Instagram now. So it's a perfect case of aligning my message to where my target audience is going to be. But how do you create the actual, messages? Because, if we're doing it as a small business, we probably sit down, write it down in 2 minutes. That's what I'm going to do. But as a marketing agency, you probably sit down and really go a lot deeper. So what is going a lot deeper? I'm sure people have heard of things like, A/B testing and things like that. Perhaps you could just elaborate on, as an agency level, what you would do in a marketing campaign.
Okay, so there's two sides to this. I'll come back to the practicalities of things like A/B testing and things like that in a second, because that's a really good point. The point around, you spend 2 minutes and agency spends hours, but that's you can't afford an expensive agency. And also the world, the big brands and agencies have spent the world, and I shouldn't say this because I did used to work for a big agency, but I don't anymore, so it's fine, I can say it. That it's a black box thing. It's like people, they try and make marketing seem really complicated. They try and make coming up with ideas really complicated so that you're scared of doing it and you're actually put off. But the reality is, if you put a bit of effort in, it's not difficult. The one thing I always say is, first rule is try and come up with things in chunks. Don't go in and try and do 2 minutes each day, because there's a great study at Irvine University which basically says it takes people about 20 minutes to actually ever get fully into a task. So if you're switching tasks, which is a bit of a misnomer, because there isn't such a thing as multitasking. You are just switching from one task to another. You don't get into it. So if you're going to write content, try and write it for 2 or 3 weeks and get it scheduled. And that's a key thing. Is there are so many good schedulers out there that cost next to nothing. Half of them are free. Go in and schedule the work and then come up with it all in one go. So I talked about this Venn diagram earlier, and it comes up. And let's say you've got 6 core subjects you talk about there. What you do is it's loosely, James is a bit of a geek, so he termed it the superhero and psychic concept, which is you would basically go, right, I'm going to come up with a superhero idea, I'm going to write a big piece, and I'm going to come up with a really good visual, but that's going to be my centerpiece. And then actually you come up with loads of psychic contents that go with that. So for example, if you wrote a blog, you might have a list in that blog, you might have a couple of quotes, some stats. And each one of those little things, you've got this superhero, each one of those becomes little sidekicks that you can then build in. So let's say you're using Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter as your free, happens to be my free, so that's probably the reason why I used it. And if you do that, then you kind of go, right, well, I've got quotes I can use regularly on Twitter that are linking through to various articles or courses we've got. But then I can have an image that we build, a video that runs for about 15 seconds that has a little list rolling through it with some imaging in the background. That's on our Instagram. And we can do that. We do. So we have a process every Thursday afternoon. I come up with the superhero content, and every Friday morning, James comes up with the sidekick contents. And I probably spend 2 hours. He spends about 3 hours. And between us, we've done 2 weeks worth of content. Wow. It's scheduled, it's set up, and it looks like we've spent days and days and spent a fortune on marketing content, because that's the problem. That once you get in and to me, everything's about process. As much as marketing is a creative thing, actually, as a small business owner, to do marketing well, you need a process. You need to be quite rigid about it. So that's how I think that's how you don't end up just going in and spending 2 minutes each day, because I don't think you're very efficient when you do that, and I don't think you have your best ideas. Yes, A/B testing. I'm glad you brought that up, because I may not have even brought it up. I've got a background in it. Website A/B testing, absolutely love the thing. But it's so easy in marketing nowadays to do that. If let's say you run a Facebook ad, and I'm not the most, I'm not the person who normally, I haven't spent years running Facebook ads, doing the practical side of it. I've been running businesses, but one of the beauties of being a small business owner again is the fact that I got get your hands dirty. I could within a couple of hours of using Facebook ad tool, and it's not a great tool, but let's be honest about that. But it's all right. I could set up an A/B test. It's dead easy. The main thing you need to think about when you're doing testing is, one, you've got to have enough volume of data. Don't do an A/B test if you're doing you're going to spend £5 a day on Facebook ads. Don't do an A/B test. It's a complete waste of time. So you need a decent volume, and you need to go to a wide enough audience. And then you need to make sure, this is the thing people fall foul of the most, is they'll have two utterly different things that they test out. Try and make them relatively similar, but change one thing. See which works. Then go with that. That one's working. See which one works. That one's working. Go with that. And also the other thing with testing is that if you run 10 tests and you have 10 successes, testing is a waste of time for you because you're not pushing yourself. You're not trying something different enough each time. It has to be different enough because you've got to have failures. Testing isn't working unless you're having failures, because you learn as much, if not more, from a failed test that didn't succeed as a successful one. And I think that's what people always forget, is they either don't push themselves enough or they just go completely bonkers. Like somebody the other day had 2 ads. It goes, "Oh, I'm testing video versus create just non-video." Basically, I went, as a concept that sounds all right, but the messages in there are completely different. It's not like you're doing completely different messages. You're then sending them through to different landing pages. Everything you've got to test, repeat, and testing is a continual process. Don't think, "Oh, once a month I'll go in, I'll do a quick test, and then that's it." You build it into your process. Basically, is what I would say.
That's really interesting, because I would be, certainly do one, then, almost forget about it, only do a few quid, on Facebook or Instagram, see I haven't got any results, get despondent, and then forget about it all. It's obviously every company is different, etc. But do you think there's a minimum amount that someone should spend on Facebook and Instagram, as that they're connected, to really start seeing results, or to do A/B testing? What sort of spend would you recommend to anyone?
It is a difficult question because everything is different to everybody. I've genuinely seen successful Facebook ads where people were ultra targeted. These are localized ones, because obviously you can do some really good localized testing. I've seen localized ones work on £5 a day, genuinely. Now, I wouldn't suggest that's probably prime. If you really want to get a bit of movement, then I think you need to be spending probably, even if you started on £20 a day, I think you've got quite a nice little trickle of stuff going through. The key thing is almost forget them for the first week, because if you keep checking in, you described perfectly, and you not described yourself, you described most business owners, including me at the start, and I had to get shouted at by my business partner. You give it 2 days and it's just like, "Oh, nothing's working, let's stop it, let's try again." It's just like, you have to let it run, you have to let the algorithm run. So almost put it live and don't go and look at it, and leave it for a week, then check it every single day, because you've got to find the point where it's not working anymore and you cut it off and you start something new.
But it's something we actually all inherently know, by virtue of the fact that we're watching our favorite ITV show. You see the advert for Burger King or Toyota car 100 times, don't you? It's not a one-off thing, and they go with it all. And is it, you have to see an advert like 6 or 7 times before people take action generally into that particular, if they're, you've got the other sort of buzzword, perhaps moment is like super fans. So perhaps going down one level from the super fans, you've got to see it 6 or 7 times, which actually even applies to, the channels advertising a particular TV show for you to watch, to get your attention and to get in there. It's that repetition, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. It is about, because one of the things that I find people fall foul of is that there's an option within most of the advertising tools, Google, Facebook, all of those, that allows you to set the frequency. It's kind of like, I'm not going to waste my money on showing it to the same person 4 times. I want to send it to the same person 10 times until they do something. And that's the point. It's like you cut them off. Well, chances are once or twice, but if you've done something that stands out, they'll notice it. Oh, they keep seeing it. At some point, if someone keeps seeing the same thing, curiosity will go, I'm just going to have a look at this. Because you don't know when you're catching them. You do your best to time your ads, but you can't really. Ultimately, you've got to go, right, I'm going to catch them 10 times. And once out of those 10 times is the point where they're going to click on it.
Yeah. And I think it's one of those things which, people don't know this. And obviously the viewers, they're still with us watching this. They're invested into their future. And they know that all successful business people ultimately are constantly learning. And it may be even the CEO of the major banks, they'll be reading the Financial Times, that ingesting information on a continual basis. And particularly in a time we're in currently with a pandemic, we do have time. We need to spend that time learning. And, it's interesting. I didn't know you could actually turn off the Google ad or the targeting to, only 4 times or the frequency. That's a really good, interesting point. I'm going to go and explore that now, because I've got some, I think, 75 quid's worth of free Google ads or something or other, that I've got from them to get them. There's their little hook to get me in to see that it works. So, but I haven't used it yet because I wanted to learn some strategy and how to use that account the most effective, that credit. So that's a very useful tool. So when you've got all your, I suppose, compiling adverts. So do you think that a Facebook advert, I mean, obviously you're quite limited in the length you can choose, isn't it? And the words on Instagram. What's a good sort of length of an advert, the copy to use?
It genuinely does depend, because I've seen a lot recently of longer adverts. In general, people have said small and punchy because it's like people can't look at too much in one go. And generally, the thing you'll find is that obviously you've got stuff that's below the fold, but if you can pay to get them fully expanded. And what I've tended to find is that if you're selling a service, people who are buying a service are more open to looking at longer information. As a bit more information, you need a killer image. And I've got to be honest with you, I think videos are probably the best way to go, particularly with services. Make sure there's subtitles on. Whatever you do, make sure there's subtitles on, because most people, when they're scrolling through Facebook, what they're doing is videos are coming up. And if there's a immediate subtitle, they're looking at it, they're reading it, because half the time they're not looking at it. So always have a video if you can in a service-based thing. I think in a product-based thing, smaller and punchier, because you just need to, again, you can do a video works as well, but you need a good image or a video, a punchy headline, and a link through to further information. So I think it depends on what you're selling very much. What I find one of the interesting things that's happening on Instagram is that by the nature of the fact that you can obviously write in Instagram as well as the image, people are actually using imagery to capture people. They're writing almost mini blogs. I mean, some of them are getting quite long. People are writing little mini blogs, and maybe what they'll do is a story every week, and each day they'll have another paragraph of stuff that goes on. So I think it can be used in different ways. Again, without sounding utterly boring, the length of the advert, the type of imagery you use, is all down to who your customer is and what's going to attract them. The customer that's interested in the long form is, for example, I am attracted to a good image and quite a lot of text. That's great. That's it. And if I'm someone's ideal customer, I very much doubt I am, but if I am, actually it's quite a scary thought of being an image up on the wall. But if I am, then that's how you attract me. But for a lot of people that I know, it's a video. Or it's, and particularly for the millennials, and Generation Z and all that kind of stuff, it's going to be about a video. It's about attracting their attention. And so, that's why with most fashion brands, you'll see you won't see big copy anyway. You'll just see images, videos. That's the thing that attracts them.
Yeah. And interesting. What, obviously we covered about, creating, Paul, our avatar, but are there any other common mistakes you commonly see from small businesses which aren't employing someone directly responsible for marketing? It's putting you on the spot, I know.
It is. That's fine. But that's a good thing. I think the number one thing I've sort of touched on, which is the fact that people try and do things a little bit at a time, and they go in and then forget about it. I think that's the number one thing, because you become incredibly inefficient. I think that's the problem. I think people don't measure things. They don't go in knowing what the end goal is, so they just kind of go on. The point of my marketing is to make some more sales, but it's kind of, is it are you going to generate interest first of all? Do you have a funnel? That's one thing, which is, I know it's sort of leading into sales, but my world is sales and marketing. As far as I'm concerned, they're grouped. One of the mistakes is always, what is the end goal? So you create an advert, great. What is that advert going to do? Do you expect someone to buy from it straight away, or do you expect to generate leads? Do you expect to get them to download? So knowing the goals and having a plan for a funnel, exactly what you're going to do. I'm going to run this ad. I'm going to get them to the website. I'm going to attract them with something else. Then they're going to add something to the basket and they're going to buy it. Or they're going to come to my site. They're going to watch a video I've put on my site. They're going to download a free piece of content, and then they're going to sign up for my newsletter. And then I'm going to be able to then market to them to get them to buy a bigger thing. Got to know what the goal is. Otherwise, it's just people do marketing for the sake of marketing. Unless there's a plan, then and that the big secret is that, like, all the things that people think big brands do and that small businesses can't do is nonsense. Like, for example, people think small businesses don't need a strategy. They need a strategy more, because they need to be even more focused, because they don't have the time, they don't have the money to waste. It's all right if I'm a massive brand. I won't say any of my ex-clients, because it would be terrible to say they had loads of money. But let's just say you got Nike. Nike can afford to make mistakes because they've got a lot of money. Bloke who runs the local sports shop down near me, who's a wonderful bloke who I go and get all my running trainers from. When he does a Facebook ad, he can't afford to get it wrong because he hasn't got that much money. So he has to get it right. And I think that's the thing.
Absolutely. And I'm biased because I do photography as well, and I see so many times companies using inferior product photography or inferior images because they don't see investing in a, and everyone calls themselves a professional photographer these days, and they're not a competent professional photographer. I'm going to term it at. How important is actually getting that image right?
Let me give you this as the example. If you're on the high street and you walk down the street and there was a shop that had a broken window in it and a load of tatty stuff in the window, and to go inside the shop, the floor was a bit dirty and everything else, you wouldn't go in with it, would you?
No.
That image is your front shop. That is the thing. That's the first thing people see. So if it's really poor, it's a piece of average stock photography, or it's an image you've come up with yourself, or you paid someone, as you say, a professional to go away and do it for you, and it looks, quite frankly, naff, or you're right, some of the product imagery that are on websites nowadays, it's just, I know it's a small business, so the people go, oh, I can't afford expensive photography. It isn't difficult to get that bit right, and you are absolutely right. If you get that wrong, that basically says, I'm not very professional. And that's the thing with a small business. You're fighting against the big brands' professionalism and the smarts they could put around it. The least you have to do is get good looking photography, because that is your shop window.
And chatting earlier on, one of the things we were talking about when you were the big boss of a big agency was you wanted to make yourself almost redundant. Perhaps you just expand on that philosophy.
Yeah, I mean, that is the thing. I wrote a blog once, not that long ago, which was my greatest achievement as a CEO was when I left. Nothing happened, nothing went wrong, because my greatest task was to bring people through in the business, people that I could work with. And I told you earlier, my greatest success when I was working there was not to be the bottleneck. My job was to make sure that whatever people needed from me, I could deliver for them efficiently so they could get their jobs done. Surround yourself. If you do one thing, and obviously we're talking predominantly to a lot of small business owners, but as you grow, and I was chatting to a friend of mine who used to work for me, he's now set up his own agency, doing brilliantly well. He's got 4 people, he's about to go and get a couple more, he's really excited, and he's just like, who do I employ, who do I get next? I was just like, they have to be smarter than you. It's the only thing that matters. Everybody around you has to do their thing better than you can do it, otherwise don't employ them. Always go and get people that are better than you, because it does 2 things. One, being surrounded by good people is great anyway. it always is good for you. Two, it takes away that temptation to go and do it yourself. That's what I always find is like, I had a brilliant HR director. I had a brilliant IT director. I had an amazing marketing director. I had an amazing sales director. That meant, I didn't interfere all the time because I trusted those people because I knew they were brilliant at what they did. And I'd like to think I could do all of their jobs reasonably well. But actually, the key to my success was the fact that I could help them all do their jobs better, but not actually do their jobs. And that's what people always fall for that. They always and it's hard, particularly small business owners. You just want to get involved in everything.
It is a common theme with people I'm chatting to, and I think they find a lot of especially family businesses find it very hard to let it go because it is their baby and they identify it as their baby, and it's do it my way or go home. But actually, their way is not necessarily the best way. They become successful up to a certain point, and that may be getting to £40,000 or 500 or £1 million revenue. They then don't take it to the next stage because they won't let that baby go and rescind control or complete control, and they want to micromanage. What can people do to overcome that? How can you help people take that leap of faith to actually hire someone who's more competent?
The basic boring answer is make sure you've got a proper business plan, obviously, to make sure that you can afford to take these people on, because what you don't want to do is you don't want to take someone on and then within 2 months realize you can't afford it, you have to let them go. It's always important, get the basics right, get your numbers right, and work with someone if you don't know. This you said to me at the start, it's all about learning. It's important that people continue to learn. I'm exactly the same, always bringing in new stuff. There are so many good resources out there nowadays for new business owners, people who are growing their businesses. I'm near Manchester. The Growth Hub in Manchester is amazing. But then a friend of mine, the guy I was talking to, this agency, he's just like, I just said to him on the call, I think it was Friday, and I still talk to him once a month. I'm basically his mentor, and I think getting mentors is an incredibly important thing. And I have my own, and they've been really good for me. But I just said to him, you're reaching a tipping point now. You need to go and invest in yourself, and you haven't invested in yourself because you've done well. You've relied on your skill set and you've relied on some good mentors and some people and they've helped you along. But now you need proper independent advice from someone outside of your normal sphere who's going to tell you something a little bit different, and they're going to train you and they're going to give you these kind of tools, and they'll help you build up a profile of how you should do this. And that's what I found is that I think people don't invest in themselves enough. Because they say they don't have the time. You'll never have the time unless you invest in yourself, because you'll always be chasing the tail, and we don't have the money. Well, I think it was you said it before, maybe even we started recording, which is that invest £500 in yourself, invest a couple of £1,000 in yourself, because it'll pay back over time. You have to see that as important. Look, a lot of people won't have a problem with spending £2,000 on marketing ads, but unless you've invested in yourself, you'll probably get those marketing ads wrong. So you're wasting that money. Look, I'm guilty, and a personal story. When we started off, we thought we'll do some Facebook ads. We've done marketing for years. We know what we're doing. None of us had actually ever done Facebook ads because it's quite a skill in itself. And we just went, we'll have a bash. And we just, what's the worst that can happen? Well, we're spending a couple of £100 each time we do these little tests, and every single one of them's failed. And then we got about 4 months in, and we were on a call with each other, and we just went, we've spent the last 4 months telling everybody that get the experts in to help you when you need it. Got to know when you hit your points. We can't listen to our own advice here. And we went and got a guy in, and we just said, go away and do that for us. And that is the problem. People try and do everything. And look, part of our mantra is to empower business owners so that they can do the marketing themselves as much as possible. But you've got to get to a point where you go, okay, I know enough to do certain point, but actually my knowledge now will allow me to employ someone else to do the job. And that, I think, is the key thing about training and understanding. You've got to know enough yourself as a business owner to be able to find the right people. You can't go and find good people if you don't understand the subject. That's the thing. That's a killer for me. People have to understand the subject enough themselves to be able to go and hire good agencies, good consultants, good employees. Because if you don't, you'll get suckered. You know,
And this
how do you
actually
know how
brings
to
me on to
interview?
my sorry, just bring on to my next question very, very, very well, actually, which is exactly what if you've got a company, you're successful, and actually I want to take the marketing a little bit more serious. I want to hire someone, a marketing expert. I mean, it's a hard task. Do you employ someone who's got a bit of experience in another company? Do you experience or employ a graduate? Or do you try, if you can afford it, someone who's a bit more senior? Because I've seen many people who call themselves, marketing experts in companies. And quite frankly, they've been absolutely hopeless. They've got that title and, I know more than they do. And that really, and I'm not in my staff, in companies I've been working with, and it's bewildering to me how they've actually got a job. I really don't know. What would be your advice to a small business looking to hire someone? And is there a sort of a medium in terms of salary? Actually, if you're going to get someone, they're going to start to be competent if they want 25, 35, 40,000. What advice could you give?
Never start by hiring someone. Always start by using a consultant.
Okay.
Because you need to work out how you're going to use them first. That's my thing, and it's a big commitment. Consultant, with the greatest respect, and I'm a consultant nowadays, I suppose, so I can say this: you can hire and fire consultants however you like. You can't just mess with people's jobs and ask them to leave jobs and come and join you if you're not entirely sure what you're going after. So always, if you're going to dip your toe in by trying a consultant. I'd always try and find a consultant first before I found an agency, because I always think that what you get of a consultant is someone who is dedicated to you. So they get to know your business. That's about choosing good ones, because you can, as we probably both know from our backgrounds, the world's full of consultants who haven't got a clue what they're talking about,
Yeah.
and basically just they run good ads. But actually, so you do need to interview consultants. That's the thing people always forget. They kind of just go and hire them, and maybe they read a pitch deck, but actually interview them as if you're going to employ them, because the way that a lot of people I know have started off is they've gone and got someone and hired them for 2 days a week, and that's really good. I remember doing that in so when I broke up, we had the wider group had a technology business and a marketing business, and we broke the two up because we were trying to put them together. They're different messages, so we broke them up, and then we actually went, do you know what, the big technology business does need a marketing department, and it needs, that's fine, but actually this small marketing, and it was only about 2.5 million size, the agency kind of went, necessary justify an expensive marketing director. So we just went and got a consultant, but he was dedicated, and he was 2 days a week, and we made sure he came into the office during those 2 days, and it really got them focused. He got them involved, and so many marketing people like working that way anyway. It won't be difficult to find them. It's in some ways, I think that's easy to find good people, because the good people know they can afford to be flexible. They know they can get away with working. I'm going to 2 days here, 2 days there, because and I often find that you get different types of people. So I think that's important. The other thing to do when you're asking and talking to consultants, marketing directors, marketing managers, whatever level you go for, ask them what their job is. What's your job as a marketing? You asked me right at the start, what is marketing? Great question. Ask the marketing director, ask the marketing manager what their job is as a marketing person. And if they don't tell you, my job is eventually to make money for this company, don't hire them, because the world is full of, I will run events for you, I will raise your profile, and I will find you, and even to the extent of going, I'll find you extra likes on Facebook, and I'll get loads of followers on Instagram. Like, none of those things actually matter. They are parts of the puzzle leading up to the end goal, which is making money. And you need a results-driven marketing person, particularly in a small business. Yes, as you get bigger and bigger, you can afford to have brand people. That's absolutely fine, because brand is more important as you get bigger and bigger. Not to say brand isn't important for small business. People think brand for small business is a logo. It's not. It's about a tone of voice. It's about who you sell to. It's about who you are. That's great. But you as the business owner, you're the brand.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're going to hire a marketing person in, results driven. You want them to be results driven. You want to get someone in who can integrate into the business for a while. And you might find that 2 days a week lasts you for quite some time. And then eventually you might get to the point you go, do you want to need someone full time? But think about this. This is a good way of doing it. Get a senior, decent consultant in 2 days a week, and eventually bring in a grad, and that grad learns from that person. And so, because a fresh grad by themselves, you're going to have to spend too much time with them about a subject you don't know well enough. So get them to learn from someone else. That's a way you can slowly build them into the business. I've always been a big proponent of apprenticeships and graduates. Love the idea of them, because I think they get to know the ethos and the culture of the business.
And also a graduate, my friend, he's the CEO of a 500-600 million pound company. He started off when there was 9 employees, now there's hundreds. He said, we hire, graduates. It doesn't matter what they got the degree in, because they've shown they can follow a process and they can learn. And that's what we want to do. We want to educate them in the way that we want them to conduct themselves in the sphere we need them to be in. And absolutely great advice. Exactly. My friend, he used to be a partner in one of the big accountancy firms, big in money. Said, it doesn't matter what a degree in. We don't hire accountants from or finance graduates. We hire people from anyone, because we know they can learn. If they fulfill our sort of culture and fit into our organization, then that's a really good hire for us. So sort of wrapping up here, Garry, there's lots of information there. Any sort of final golden nuggets for marketing?
Final golden nuggets. I think it is about that whole investment in yourself, into the subject matter. You have to be the expert. People, do you know what I find with marketing is that people, and it links to pricing, which is the more you, I'm not going to say niching down, the more you focus in on what you are and who you're talking to, the more you sound like an expert on that specific thing. And that means you can charge a hell of a lot more for that little thing than the people who are selling to everybody. And I think that's the thing I learned a long time ago, is that if your marketing is aimed at a really small specialist thing, you can charge a lot more for it. Because people, the example someone used on me the other day was that if you've opened up a restaurant and you want to set up a website, and there's two adverts. One says, I'm a really good web developer who builds websites. And the other one says, I only build restaurant websites, high converting restaurant websites to get you more people into your restaurant. Which one are you going for? You're going for that one, aren't you? Yeah. And do you know what? This person was going to charge you 200 quid. This one's going to charge you 400 quid, but you believe that 400 quid's better spent than 200 quid. And that's what marketing is. Marketing is talking to the right person about the subject, so you'll get a higher chance of conversion, but also you get them to pay more because they believe in what you do.
Yeah, that's a brilliant tip to end with. Thank you very much indeed for that, Garry. We're going to put all your links below, etc., to the company. It's 33%, and just thank you again. Really, really do appreciate it.
Really enjoyed it. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.